The scorching midday African sun beats relentlessly on the savanna of Amboseli, Kenya. What should have been an ordinary day of wildlife observation is about to turn into one of the most intense and revealing experiences any human could witness. A small creature is desperately fighting for its life. An elephant calf, only a few months old, is trapped in a muddy pit that has become its deadly trap. Its anguished cries echo across the plains, calling for a family that seems to have vanished into the infinite horizon of the savanna. But this is not just a story about rescue. This is a story about what happens when nature's most primal and powerful instincts come into direct conflict with human compassion. A story that challenges everything we think we know about the relationship between humans and wild animals. The Amboseli region, nestled in the plains at the foot of the majestic Mount Kilimanjaro, is world-renowned for hosting one of the most studied and photographed elephant populations on the planet. For decades, researchers have documented the complex behavior and intricate social structures of these gentle giants, but paradise has its deadly traps. During the dry season, when rains become a distant memory, small waterholes turn into treacherous snares. The mud, initially a refreshing refuge, hardens under the relentless sun, creating natural prisons from which few can escape. It is in this setting that our drama unfolds. A calf, separated from its herd during a search for water, has fallen into one of these treacherous pits. Its short, still developing legs cannot find traction on the slippery walls. With every desperate movement, it only sinks deeper into the sticky mud. Time is cruel. In a matter of hours, dehydration and exhaustion can exact their fatal toll. Nature, in its majestic indifference, makes no distinction between young and old, large and small. Survival is a matter of luck, strength, and sometimes, the unexpected intervention of compassionate strangers. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a wildlife veterinarian with over 15 years of experience in conservation in East Africa, was conducting routine research on migration patterns when she stumbled upon the harrowing scene. At 42 years old, she had witnessed countless tragedies in the wild, but something about the desperate eyes of that calf touched her conservationist soul deeply. By her side, James Kamani, a local guide with an encyclopedic knowledge of elephant behavior, observed the situation. With a mix of concern and professional caution, born and raised near Amboseli, James learned from childhood to read the subtle signs of nature, to interpret every movement, every sound, every shift in the wind that might signal danger or opportunity. "Doctor," James murmured, his experienced eyes scanning the horizon, "his family can't be far. Elephants never abandon their young voluntarily." The support team also included Marcus Thompson, a BBC cinematographer who had been documenting African wildlife for over a decade, and two local assistants, Peter and Emmanuel, young and strong men who grew up respecting and fearing the giants of the savanna in equal measure. On the other side of the muddy pit, a small and vulnerable figure struggled against the inevitable. The calf, estimated by James to be about 6 months old, showed clear signs of exhaustion. Its ears, still disproportionately large for its small body, flapped with the effort of each breath. Its large, expressive eyes seemed to plead for help that might never come. The decision to intervene was not made lightly. Dr. Mitchell knew that interfering with nature always carries unpredictable consequences. But faced with that scene of pure suffering, human compassion spoke louder than scientific protocols. "James, how much time do you think he has?" Sarah asked, already mentally calculating the resources needed for the rescue. "At most 2 hours before dehydration becomes irreversible," the guide replied, his voice laced with respectful urgency. "But, doctor, we need to consider the possibility that the herd is watching from a distance. Elephants are extremely protective creatures." The team began preparing the necessary equipment: sturdy ropes, an improvised wooden plank to create traction, gallons of water to clean the mud from the calf's eyes and nostrils, and mild sedatives in case the animal panicked during the rescue. Marcus positioned his camera at a safe angle, capturing not only the rescue operation, but also keeping watch over In the African savanna, safety is never something to be taken for granted. "Remember," Sarah instructed as she adjusted the ropes. "Elephants have an exceptionally long memory and can recognize human faces years after a first encounter. What we do here today may echo for decades." The plan was simple in theory, complex in execution. They would create an improvised ramp using the wooden plank and ropes, allowing the calf to find enough support to climb out of the pit. Peter and Emmanuel positioned themselves to provide additional physical strength, while James kept a constant vigil on the horizon, his senses sharp for any sign of movement in the bushes. With surgical precision and racing hearts, the rescue operation began. Dr. Mitchell partially descended into the pit, her boots sinking into the dark, sticky mud that had become the calf's prison. "Easy, little one," she whispered, her soft voice contrasting with the palpable tension of the moment. "We're here to help you." The calf, initially startled by the human presence, soon seemed to understand that these strange creatures represented its only hope of salvation. Its eyes, once glazed with despair, now gleamed with a spark of renewed hope. James watched in fascination as the veterinarian established an almost telepathic connection with the animal. "Incredible how they know," he murmured. "Even so, young, he understands you're trying to help." The first attempt to lift the calf failed. Its hind legs, covered in hardened mud, couldn't find enough traction on the improvised plank. But Sarah didn't give up. With maternal patience, she carefully cleaned the mud from the animal's eyes and nostrils, ensuring it could breathe freely. "Marcus, are you getting this?" she asked without taking her eyes off the calf. "Every second," the cinematographer replied, his camera capturing not only the physical rescue but also the profound emotional connection between human and animal. On the second attempt, with repositioned ropes and the coordinated effort of the entire team, the young elephant finally found enough support. Step by step, with determination that defied its tender age, it slowly climbed out of its muddy prison. When its forelegs finally touched solid ground again, the relief was palpable. The calf stood still for a moment, as if unable to believe its newfound freedom. Then it vigorously shook its large ears, spraying mud around, and let out a soft sound that James interpreted as gratitude. But the celebration was cut short. From the distant horizon, a cloud of dust began to form, rapidly growing toward the group. James was the first to recognize the signs. "They're coming," he said, his voice tense. "The entire herd, and they don't seem happy." The sound was unmistakable, the deep, resonant trumpeting of adult elephants on the move. But there was something different in that sound, something that made Sarah's blood run cold. It wasn't just the sound of a family reuniting with a lost member, it was the sound of fury. "Everyone to the vehicles." "Now," Dr. Mitchell shouted, but before they could move, the herd emerged from the vegetation like a personified force of nature. 15 adult elephants, led by an imposing matriarch with time-worn tusks, charged toward the human group. Their ears were fully flared, their trunks raised menacingly, and their eyes gleamed with an intensity that seemed to burn through the souls of the rescuers. "Don't run," James shouted. "Sudden movement will trigger a charge." The calf, upon seeing its family approaching, ran toward them with evident joy. But instead of the warm reunion everyone expected, something extraordinary happened. The matriarch stopped abruptly, just 10 meters from the human group, her massive presence completely dominating the landscape. For a moment that seemed to last an eternity. Humans and elephants stared at each other across an evolutionary chasm. Of millions of years, the silence was deafening, broken only by the heavy sound of animal breathing and the pounding of human hearts. Then, slowly, in a way that defied all scientific logic and behavioral expectations, something magical happened. The matriarch took one step forward, then another, approaching Dr. Mitchell with a deliberation that was both terrifying and majestic. Sarah stood still, every fiber of her being screaming to run, but her professional experience and intuition kept her in place. What happened next defies conventional scientific explanation and remains one of the most extraordinary moments ever documented in human-wildlife interaction. The massive matriarch extended her trunk toward Sarah, gently touching her arm, then her face, as if recognizing a familiar scent. Other members of the herd followed suit, approaching the other members of the rescue team with what could only be described as gratitude. "My God," Marcus whispered, his camera capturing every second of this surreal interaction. "They're thanking us." James, with tears in his eyes, translated what he was witnessing. In Maasai culture, we have ancient stories about this. We say that elephants can see into people's hearts. They know when someone acts with true love. For over 20 minutes, the herd stayed close to the humans, allowing a level of interaction that would normally be impossible in the wild. The younger elephants played around the vehicles, while the adults maintained a protective but not vigil. The rescued calf seemed particularly interested in Sarah, repeatedly returning to touch her hands with its small trunk, as if wanting to memorize the scent of the person who saved its life. "They're introducing us to the family," Sarah realized, awestruck. "It's as if we're being accepted into the group." But nature has its own rhythms and priorities. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, the matriarch let out a low, resonant sound, clearly a call to continue the journey. One by one, the herd members began to move away, but not before one final gesture of recognition. The matriarch approached Sarah once more, gently placing her trunk on the veterinarian's head for a long moment, then turned and led her family back into the savannah, the little calf happily trotting alongside its mother. As the dust settled and the herd of elephants disappeared into the golden horizon of the African evening, the rescue team remained in contemplative silence. What they had experienced transcended anything their scientific training or previous experiences could have prepared them for. 30 years studying elephants, Dr. Mitchell said, her voice choked with emotion, and I never imagined such profound communication between our species could exist. James, with the ancestral wisdom of his people, offered his perspective. My grandparents always said that animals are our older brothers. They understand things that we, in our modern arrogance, have forgotten. Today, they reminded us that compassion is a universal language. The video documentation of the rescue and the subsequent encounter quickly went viral, reaching millions of people worldwide. But beyond its social media impact, the incident had profound and lasting consequences for conservation in the region. The rescue site was transformed into an environmental education point, where visitors can learn about the challenges faced by wildlife and the importance of respectful coexistence between humans and animals. Funds raised through the interest generated by the video supported the construction of safe watering holes in the area, drastically reducing the number of animals falling into mud traps. Dr. Mitchell established a long-term monitoring program, following the herd that starred in this extraordinary encounter. Surprisingly, the elephants continued to display friendly behavior toward the humans involved in the rescue, recognizing them even years later. What we learned that day, Sarah reflects, is that emotional intelligence is not exclusive to humans. Elephants are capable of gratitude, recognition, and even forgiveness in a way that challenges our traditional scientific understanding. The little calf, nicknamed Hope by the team, grew into a strong and healthy member of its herd. Follow-up photographs show that it retains a special curiosity for research vehicles, often approaching when it spots the team that saved its life. This story teaches us that, in a world increasingly divided between human development and nature preservation, there are moments of grace where the barriers between species dissolve. Moments where compassion transcends biology and creates connections that challenge our understanding of what it means to be intelligent, emotional, and capable of gratitude. The most powerful message from this experience is not about the superiority of one species over another, but about our shared responsibility as inhabitants of this planet. Every action we take, whether saving a calf trapped in the mud or protecting threatened habitats, ripples through the interconnected web of life. The elephants of Amboseli reminded us that we are all part of a larger family, a community of sentient beings sharing this fragile and precious world. They showed us that love and gratitude know no species boundaries, and that our capacity to care for one another can create miracles. The story of Little Hope and its family doesn't need to end here. Each of us has the power to become part of this narrative of conservation and compassion. If you were touched by this extraordinary story of connection between species, consider supporting organizations that work tirelessly to protect elephants and their habitats. The Amboseli Trust for Elephants, the Save the Elephants Foundation, and the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust are just a few of the organizations dedicated to ensuring that future. Generations can witness the majesty and intelligence of these gentle giants. You can contribute in many ways, symbolically adopting an orphaned elephant, funding environmental education programs in local communities, or simply sharing this story to raise awareness about the challenges faced by wildlife. Remember that every small action counts. Just as Dr. Mitchell and her team didn't hesitate to help a calf in danger, we too can make a difference through our daily choices. Reduce consumption of products that contribute to habitat destruction, support responsible tourism that benefits both local communities and wildlife, and educate others about the importance of conservation. Elephants are a keystone species. Their health reflects the health of entire ecosystems. Protecting them means protecting countless other species that share their habitats. Visit our links in the description to find concrete ways to support elephant conservation. Follow us for more inspiring wildlife stories, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our documentaries about the extraordinary nature of our planet. Together, we can ensure that stories like Hope's continue to happen, and that the magic of connection between species remains alive for future generations. Because, in the end, we are all part of the same family, the family of life on Earth. What will you do today to protect our giant brothers of the African savanna? The choice and the power to make a difference are in your hands.